Hey everybody, this is herculespetix, founder, curator, docent, and gift shop employee of the herculespetix Academy of Comic Book Studies. Today we're going to be looking at Trilogy Tour 2 from 1998. This is an anthology that was basically published to promote the Trilogy Tour, which was a bunch of artists combining their skills and for promotional reasons. So they would tour conventions. The first one, I believe, was the year before. Trilogy Tour 1, it was just Jeff Smith, Charles Vess, and Linda Medley. And for the second tour, they recruited Mark Crilley, Jill Thompson, and Stan Sakai. Basically, they're 6 independent artists. Even though some were published by little companies, they all figured, together we could all promote our different comics and draw on different fans, and maybe it'll be better for getting our names out there. So this was published kind of as a promotional thing for the tour, but it's just a nice little anthology in its own right. We start off with a Charles Vess cover. Not too thrilled with this Charles Vess cover. It seems like he dashed this off. Having said that, it's still really nice. Charles Vess is great, but I've definitely seen better work from him. This is a very thin comic, but it is square bound. It's got this little, mini graphic novel thing going on. We have a little front piece, and I think this is all the artists illustrating their own creations. I think. Or maybe it's one artist, I don't know. Introduction by Jeff Smith. And the novelty of this collection is that everything's in full color. Some of these comics, or series, were never published in color. So this is the only time they were ever published in color. Here's the contents page. This comic is falling apart, guys. The pages are coming out. So we have a little, every artist gets their own nice little introduction, which is interesting. Gives you a little biography, tells us what they're working on. Charles Vess comic at the time was Ballads and Sagas, which for the most part, I believe, retold Norse myths. But there's no example of that in this. Instead, Charles Vess illustrates A Tale of Rose, Jeff Smith's great character from Bone. This is lovely coloring. I really like this. It's I believe it's watercolors, and just looks really sharp. So Rose is coming back from a little hunting expedition. She's basically a princess, but she's kind of a tomboy, and she doesn't want to have to do any of her princessly duties. She'd rather just go hunting or whatever, having fun. She has these 2 dogs who talk, and they're her buddies. The dialogue's pretty funny. I didn't mention this, but all these stories are also linked by the fact that they're all ages. That was part of the Trilogy Tours thing. But if you've read Bone, yeah, it is all ages, but it doesn't mean it's dumbed down. Just Jeff Smith's a great writer. So I don't even remember who these characters are. I read the Rose graphic novel years ago. But I'm like, I want more of these dogs. These dogs are great. I love the way Vess draws them, too. And then here's the dragon from Bone. I guess Rose knew her when she was younger. Did I even mention that? There's a tale of Rose when she was younger, before Bone. Before she ever met Bone. So she's late for some function, some stupid princessly function she has to do. She's like, all right, fine. And she sees her sister, and she's like, wait, where's she going? What is she doing? And she crosses this bridge, and all of a sudden, this kind of giant spectral version of her, of Rose, pops out of the gorge. And this is such kind of scary imagery. The spectral image of Rose is just covered with these giant flies. I guess they're locusts, actually. And then they just, the specter kind of dissipates. And Rose is like, oh, I guess it was just a trick of the light, it's really just a swarm of grasshoppers. Just a tiny little interlude. I don't know where this would fit into the Rose graphic novel, or if it does at all. Linda Medley gets the next spotlight. If you've ever read Linda Medley's Castle Waiting, it's amazingly good. It's a great comic. Her cartooning is flawless. It's written with such humor, and I don't want to sound lame, but like with warmth. It is definitely all ages, but you never feel like you're getting talked down to. It's funny as hell. Great characters. And this one, I can't remember her name. She's great. She's this nun, this eccentric nun, and her order is kind of like this weird order of nuns who are kind of heretical, even though they're just really good, all good ladies. But the mainstream church, they do some things they don't like that are non-kosher, I guess. She sees one of her friends, her nun friends, and the nun friend says, "Come here and give me a hug." And right when she's about to hug her, she says, "Wait a minute, nice try." And it's this little demon guy who is masquerading as her friend. And he's been in the comic. And he always kind of like pesters this nun. But it's almost like they obviously have this weird affection for each other. Kind of reminds me of the two characters in the beginning of Good Omens. You know, like one's a devil, one's a nun. And so they're obviously at odds. But they do seem to kind of like each other. She even offers him a cookie. This is such good stuff. I really love Castle Waiting. I'll show them off at one point. I'm getting around to it. Trust me. He loves the snickerdoodle. He says, "We can't get those in hell." So she even invites him to church. She says, "Oh, if you can walk on sacred ground like this graveyard, you could probably come to my church." And he says, "That sounds like an invitation." And she gives him a wink and says, "All are welcome in the house of the Lord." And he says, "Hot damn, it's a date." So maybe his affection for her is even more than just platonic. Once again, just a small little interlude, but it really gives you flavor of the writing and the drawing. I really like this. This is such a well done facsimile of medieval art, and basically illustrating what we just read in a medieval style. Next we get Jill Thompson. I gotta say, Jill Thompson is one of the most improved artists in my lifetime. When she started like drawing for Vertigo, drawing the Invisibles, I hated her art. I was always groaning when she took over a Sandman arc. I'd be like, this one. And then she developed this more cartoony style. And now I think it looks great, her stuff. And she's a great painter. Her full color stuff, as you shall now see, it's really wonderful, really warm colors, and just, it's gorgeous. So Scary Godmother is just, she lives in this like weird Halloween land, basically. She's having a tea party. She invites all of her weird friends over. I don't know what, so I think this one's like a witch. This one might be a vampire, I don't know. And this boy vampire and this werewolf guy, he's the son of the witch. They're like, they want to crash the party because of all the good food. And they're like, "Oh man, how do we got to get in there somehow." Supposedly it's a girls only party. But Mr. Pettibone's allowed in, the skeleton guy. I guess because he makes the best shrimp puffs in the land. So they're like, "Oh, we got to get in now. Those shrimp puffs are so good." Nice watercolor business going on. So they try to pretend to be exterminators and get into the party that way. But that doesn't work. And they try to squeeze down the chimney, try to pull a Santa Claus, but the werewolf's too fat to get down. And then the vampire boy's dad shows up and a bunch of his friends. I think Mr. Professor Toad and Bugaboo. All these designs are really fun. I really like the way she draws all these characters. And the vampire boy's dad says, why don't you just ask him? Knock on the door and say, hey, can we hang out with you guys? And it turns out that's all it took. Mr. Pettibone answers the door. He makes him dress up, though, kind of girly. And everyone's, like, telling stories, I guess. It's storytelling time. And the werewolf's chowing down. Even though I do like this art, I'm not a fan of this writing. It's very cutesy. It just reads like oh, I want to appeal to young adults, YA fiction. I don't know. It just rubs me the wrong way. Not all the jokes aren't that funny. She packs it with lots of jokes and humorous interludes and things, but it wasn't my cup of tea. It's not terrible, but it's not that good. And, part of me, it's easy to ignore. Just looking at these beautiful colors and nice character designs. Next, we have Mark Crilly, pretty much known only for Akiko. I don't know if that guy's ever done anything else. I don't even know if Akiko's still going, but apparently he just went on and on and on for more than a decade, I think. And it was one of the few kids comics out there, or child-friendly comics. But Wizard liked it, would give it the thumbs up. He would win all these kind of awards, lots of Eisners. It's kind of an interesting cartoony style, almost reminds me of Matt Howarth or Haworth. It's definitely distinct. This story is called Akiko in the Forbidden Foothills of Gosma-Turk. And I guess this guy's the hero, and this little girl's the hero too. They're heroes of the comic. They've got this little robot dude and this little flying bubble. As you can tell, I know nothing of Akiko. I never read one. And they're looking for their friend. They're like, And they find his books scattered around the ground. And they're like, oh, man, he would never part with a book. He'd rather part with his own arm. And they find a whole trail. So the little girl, who maybe she's Akiko. Yeah, she is. Akiko says, oh, somebody probably abducted him. And he let his books spill out for a trail. So they follow the book trail. It really does remind me of Matt Haworth in a way. If Matt Haworth was more cutesy and child-friendly. And they find their friend, I believe his name is Mr. Burby. He's all webbed up by this horrible monster. It looks like he's done for. And then the big monster grabs the heroic dude. He gets webbed up. And then all of a sudden they hear this singing, and I guess it's their little friend Poog, this floating bubble guy, and he sings this song that acts as a lullaby and puts the monster to sleep. And so it's a happy ending. Yeah, I don't know. I guess if you were a little kid, this would be great. And then we get... God, some would say a modern master, Stan Sakai, with his Usaji Yojimbo character. Another thing about these stories is they're so little. They're just trying to give you... It was just a promotional comic, so they're just giving you a little taste of each series. Sometimes that makes the work suffer, because it's Castle Waiting is so much more than that little story. It has so many characters, and part of its charm is its huge cast of characters and the way they interact and stuff. But still, for the most part, I think all these stories are just they're pretty nice. This is called The Guardian. And we see Usaji Yojimbo, the rabbit samurai. He wants to pass this bridge. There's a big samurai guard in full armor. And he won't let Usaji pass. And this guy says, "This is my lord's bridge. I was ordered to defend it against the enemy." He says, "I'm not your enemy. I got no quarrel with you." He's like, "Yeah, you still can't pass." So Usaji, Usaji's cool. He's just like, "Well, fine. I don't want to fight you. I'll find another way to cross." But then he says, "No, I can't let you leave. You might report back about our defenses." And Usaji's starting to get ticked off now. And then the guy says, "No enemy may be allowed to live." So Usaji's like, "Fine. If that's the way you want it, I guess we're going to have to fight." I love Sakai's cartooning. It's just so appealing. I can imagine if I discovered these as a little kid, I would have fucking loved this shit. More than I do now. And we get a wicked battle scene. Usaji draws first blood. But then it looks like the samurai, it looks like a killing blow. It's like, when I was reading this, I was like, what? Usaji Yojimbo doesn't lose. He falls into the shore. And then he gets another blow. We just see this little freak. And Usaji passes out. Meanwhile, the samurai is saying, "My lord honored me with a task. I have not failed him, not again." It looks like it's the end of Usaji here. But a little while later, we see him, he wakes up. There are these woodcutters, a husband and wife. And, they woke him up and they're like, "Are you okay?" And he says, "I'm alive. I should be dead." And he says, "Where's that samurai?" And he points to the bridge, and when he looks over, the bridge is broken. These woodcutters say it was destroyed many years ago during the Civil War. Apparently, the general was tasked with defending the bridge, but he failed. And it brought the Lord, basically almost defeated the Lord. So the Lord destroyed the bridge in his rage. And, of course, there's a legend that general, his ghost, chains him to this world. And they point over like 20 feet, and they're like, "Hey, why didn't you just take that new bridge that they built afterwards?" And that's it for the story, pretty much. Great stuff. I definitely need more Usaji Yojimbo. I have a pathetic amount. Just a few short stories here and there. And now we have Jeff Smith, the ringleader of all this. And here's a 2-page little, basically just a joke, a gag, featuring Phony Bone and shit. What's the name? Smiley Bone and Phony Bone. And like Jeff Smith does, it's pretty funny. This one's very political. Phony Bone, who's always trying to pull some scam. He said, "You know what? Nobody respects me, even though I'm just trying to give people what they want. I'm a businessman." And he says, "People love greed. They're just embarrassed to admit it. Man, if I could convince people that greed was okay, they'd be eating out of my hand." And Smiley Bone says, "What if you could make greed into a political party? Everyone would vote for you." And then Phony Bone says, "Why stop there? Make it into a religion." And then look at it. I love this look on his face. He's manic. "What if you could make greed into a religion and a political party? Imagine the power you'd have." And then he says, "Nah, that could never happen." It's a little too close to home right now. But a nice little 2-page gag from Jeff Smith. Here's a little ad. And we see that inside front cover in color for this time. So there you go, guys. Trilogy Tour 2. I don't think there was ever a 3. I have a feeling. In fact, I think the Trilogy Tour stopped. I think the market for small price comics. I couldn't support it anymore. I could be wrong. So I guess I'm on the lookout for Trilogy Tour 1. Hopefully I'll find that one day. But in the meantime, I hope you guys like looking at this. And I hope to see you next time here at the Herculespetix Academy of Comic Book Studies.